dating agency, and I'm going to let her tell you her story, and I'm going to maybe ask a few questions to kind of get some business.
Keep me on tangent. Yeah, because I do just go, whoa. Oh,
down
okay.
here.
Oh,
A bit like a chat show.
it's a chat show.
Starting right this second.
Oh.
With Stuart and Hayley. Yeah, absolutely. So, Hayley.
I'm going to get my crib notes so I don't go sailing off on tangents, because I otherwise we'll all be sat here till 4 o'clock, and we don't want that.
So, tell us all about yourself, how you got started. It's a fascinating industry. Where did you end up finding out about starting in that industry, and your backstory? Go.
Okay, so I'm Hayley. I am 40, and yes, I run an elite dating agency, so a high-end matchmaking agency. It sounds really old-fashioned. It kind of is. Matchmaking has been around for a really long time, but it's just sort of taking away the technology that everyone has with online dating and bringing it back to the more personal interaction and meeting with everyone. So I am the owner and founder and shareholder, only shareholder of the business. So lots of people think it isn't a very relatable business, and it's just so out there that no one else would have anything in common with it. But I suppose what I wanted to do today was just really sort of talk about my journey, and hopefully you may be able to get some tips or advice or avoid things that, mistakes that I made, or I'll just be a distraction from Brexit for an hour. At the very least. So my dating agency is for people that tick 3 boxes. They're all financially independent. They are all professionals in some capacity. So I'm targeting cash-rich, time-poor people. And they range from around 30, 35 up to, our eldest is in their 70s. So it's a really broad spectrum of ages. And they come to me looking for different things, but the one thing that's consistent is they all want a long-term relationship. And for whatever reason, they have an issue finding that. So I'm that solution to whatever that issue is. And normally it is time. Then they're normally just so busy, they don't have time. And then the other issue seems to be they're just not meeting the right person, or their demands and criteria are so high that their pool of potential is tiny, and it's just impossible for them to do it themselves. So that really is effectively what I'm doing. They want a partnership, they want someone to share their life with, and something in their life is an obstacle to them doing that. And I'm the middleman to get rid of that obstacle for them. So my business model, I had 2 offices. My main office is in Godalming, and we've been there for about 4 years, I think, 4 or 5 years. And it started in London. And I still have an office in London, but it's teeny tiny because it's in Mayfair and they charge per the square foot, and it's just horrendously expensive. It's more of a wardrobe, actually. I just keep my shoes and coats up there. It's a very expensive wardrobe. But I meet my customers between the London and the Surrey offices. So my clientele tend to be within London, and then really all around the M25. Home counties is huge for me. So Surrey, Hampshire, Sussex, Berkshire, going up to sort of the Cotswolds. And then I do have lots of international members who are affiliated with London and travel here and spend perhaps 50% of their time here and have homes elsewhere. So those are sort of the people that I target in the areas that I work in. And yes, as I said, they join me really for discretion and confidentiality. We don't splash members' details around. There's not a website for people to flick through their pictures or anything like that. There's not a lookbook for people to go through profiles, because I just feel that's like a Chinese menu. I'll have number 7 and number 15 looks quite nice. And so we don't do that. So it's all just very individual. So I meet everyone personally. We create profiles and we use photographs of all of our members. But we do it in a very discreet way. They're not splashed around. We just hand pair people with other members within our portfolio. And that's a really big selling point for my members, because they are often quite high profile in what they do. They're not celebrities. Some of them are kind of well known, but they are more CEOs of big financial companies that are floated, or they are vice presidents of massive global legal firms or something like that. And they probably have however many hundreds of employees beneath them. And if one of their secretaries was to go on match.com and see them, it would be slightly embarrassing. So their personal life is something that they have to keep discreet. One, for the confidentiality and discretion. Two, they don't want it splashed around everywhere and people knowing their personal business. And three, because they have a certain stigma or a certain profile that comes with them that can't really be compromised by personal lives, really. They're allowed to have them, but it's just kept under the radar. So that's a big motivator for people coming to me. They just want that discretion. So all of our members sign really tight confidentiality agreements, and we only introduce by first names, and we keep all their specific details very discreet, particularly with, gosh, in the last 10 years since I've been doing this, Google and the way that you can find people, it's getting harder and harder. So we just have to be really careful about not compromising their confidentiality. And some of them, if I'm honest, are probably still going through slight divorces and things like that. So we catch people at...
Like, the fact, modern technology and Google and all this sort of stuff is actually really beneficial for a lot of reasons, but you've kind of almost flipped that and found the negatives.
Yeah.
And then kind of
They
got
just...
because of that.
Yes, yeah. So they just need to keep what they're doing outside of their work life very discreet. So I charge quite a lot of money for my services. I've just changed my prices, actually. So at the moment we have two memberships, a classic membership and a premium membership. So our classic membership is working with members of my team. So I meet with everyone. I'm the salesperson at the company. I meet with all the members and pitch the idea to them and tell them all the benefits and how I can have them married off in a year. I don't promise that. I'd be sticking about 3 more noughts on my price if that was guaranteed. And I either pass them on to one of my matchmaking team who works alongside them and they're their personal confidant, or they work directly with me, and that's a premium membership. So my classic membership is £11,000 for an annual membership. That includes VAT, bargain. And then my premium membership is £18,000, including VAT. So it's the prices are a good filter. So people that join me are bloody serious. They're not.
Can I just stop you there and make a really important point? Like Hayley, I've sold to wealthy individuals, and you're right, the pricing is of little concern, but it kind of is a badge of quality.
Yes, yeah.
So think about your pricing in slightly different ways, because not everybody is going to look at I'm the cheapest in the market as a positive thing.
Yep.
Yeah. So, sorry,
Yep,
Hayley,
that's
I
true.
just want to make that point.
I'm like Stella. I'm reassuringly expensive. I should just steal that catchphrase. But yes, it is. So it is a natural filter to who I work with. And that works really well for me because then I'm not diversifying and I'm not trying to fit square pegs in round holes. My members are affluent and they want to meet people who live a somewhat similar quality lifestyle to them. And that is a compatibility with the matchmaking. They will relate better and get on better with people who live a similar quality lifestyle, that holiday in similar resorts, that dine at similar restaurants. It's not to say that opposites don't attract, that's not true, but if you've got a certain niche clientele that are all the same, I've kind of covered a very quick base straight away.
Sort of dependency, maybe.
Yes, and so a lot of my members, they're not born with a silver spoon in their mouth. They're not aristocrats. There is an agency that deals with them, actually, and so that's their niche market. And they will ask you things like, what family social set do you come from? Where is your family crest? And those are important factors to get within that agency. And I'm not. They're professionals, and they are fairly affluent, and they don't want to support someone or bankroll them. They've worked really hard to get to where they are, and they want to meet someone who has similar drives and ambitions. And it's kind of crude to say money defines that, but it's just a very natural, easy filter process. And it just means that my price point, I have a certain niche market and I have very motivated people. And that's an incentive for my clientele. They think that if everyone's paying that, they are on the same path as me, and they find that quite comforting. Is that true? Sometimes it isn't, but... Yeah, that's true. I always do feel that I'm trying to justify it and over-justify it. So when I first started, I charged £5,000 plus VAT. And the reason I did that is because there is quite a discrepancy with my competitors. So I looked at who was in the market, and you had the low end of the spectrum, which is online dating, 25 quid a month, that sort of thing. And then you kind of had the higher end dating, which at the time started around £9,000, £10,000, and those were the people I wanted to be in line with. But it's one of those industries where people think you are best in terms of how long you've been in the industry. So if you've been in 25 years, you can charge the highest price. If you've been in 20 years, you have to be underneath that. If you've just started, you can't compete with those people. They've been here ages doing it. There's no way you're not as good as them. I just felt that was kind of wrong because the agencies that had been around for a long time were kind of sluggish. They were really old-fashioned. They had this really quite lazy attitude of, well, we've been here for ages, this is how it's done, you fit in with us, and that's just it. There was no innovation, there was no, well, the dating industry has changed considerably in 25 years, so I will keep up with that. They were really stubborn and rigid about their ways. So I just thought, right, well, I can see that that's an issue within the industry I'm working in. So I am as good as them, and I'm going to be better than them, but I'm going to undercut them to just go with this mentality of however long you've been around, you can charge more. So I started at 5,000 to just sort of undercut them. And probably, this is my 10th year, this is the only time I've just whacked up my prices. I normally just creep up every couple of years, just a tiny, £500, £1,000. And I have so many members at the moment that have been with those other agencies that charge now double what I charge. And I just thought, well, I'm delivering a better service than them. They're with me and they're in a relationship, so screw it, I'm racking up my prices. I only did this a few weeks ago. I hope it's going to work. I sound really confident. This is what happens. It's all going to be fine. So in effect, they haven't been whacked up. They've gone up about £2,000 each or so. So it's not huge compared to the price I'm charging. And it just keeps me on a level with those people that are considered at the top end of the market. Something I was going to say about prices is I don't discount on the prices. I am fairly flexible in that if someone wants to pay a certain amount up front and they pay a bit more two months later, I'll do that. I'll try and flex and bend to my members' needs. So I've just had a lovely lady join who's going through a divorce and she can get out a certain amount and the next amount, that's fine. I trust my members, they trust me. But I don't discount because, it's one reason I don't do it, is I met a lady probably about 6-7 years ago. And at the end of our meeting, she was really keen and she said, will you discount on your prices? And I could tell she was going to be slightly tricky to match. And she was going to be, and when I first started, I would discount all the time. When I think about the prices I charge and the time I put in, I just kick myself about it. But it's
Why would she be tricky to match?
criteria that she was telling me about. So it was just very limiting and it wasn't going to be, I'm not afraid of hard work, but it was going to take a little bit of mind work to get her outside of what she thought she should be matched with. And she said, do you discount your prices? And I remember thinking about it for a second. I wanted to say yes, because I was like, I want the sale. And I just went, no, I don't. And she said, well, that's good. That's a test. Because if someone discounted their prices, they don't believe in their product. And they don't believe in the value of it. And she said, you clearly do believe in it. And that was such a lesson for me quite early on. And I've never discounted since then, ever. Just based on that one person. But it's worked.
But it's a confidence in your service and your business and your product to say, this is what I charge. If you go into Ferrari and say, oh, can I have 20% off? They'd say, can you step aside, sir? I've got a queue to serve.
Yeah, that's true. It is a confidence thing, just that belief in your brand. And that's just what turned her onto the sale.
Starting to one person and somebody else can expect it. And
yes.
That's relevant to so many businesses,
It is, and then you just start to doubt your own thing. You think, well, I've done this, no, So no, this is my fee, and that's it. So my background, how I got into this, is I was a wedding planner, a bit of an old romantic about things, and I loved that job, and it was really nice. It probably did give me a bit of a start with this because I would cynically look at the people that were coming in, and I would see the families and things like that, and I would sit there thinking, oh, I don't think that one's going to last. So instinctively, I felt I had an idea about matching and romances. Oh, no, I used to check in, because I used to check in with people on their anniversaries and think, happy first anniversary. Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that. That's a shame. Yeah, I was right about that one. So I was started as a wedding planner. I did that for years and years. I really enjoyed it, actually. And that was all about customer service and people's needs. And also, as much as my members are very affluent and they are quite demanding, there is nothing more demanding than a bride near her wedding day. So I had really good insight into people with quite high demands. I stopped doing that because I got divorced. And a divorced wedding planner is a bitter person. And all these lovely couples would skip in all happy. And there was me going, what a freaking waste of money. You're going to spend 25 grand on that, 25 grand, 3 grand on your flowers. It's only going to last a year. This is going to cost you £700 a month, ridiculous. Anyway, so after really not serving these people, a very good friend had said to me, you are just such a miserable downer. You should go hang out with single miserable people. She's a really good friend. And it was, so this is, gosh, about 11 years ago now. And no, maybe 12 years ago. And so I was flicking through the paper. This is how long ago it was. I was flicking through the paper looking for a job. No one does that now. And there was an advert that said matchmaking agency, and they were looking for a matchmaker. And it just, I always think it's fate. And it just jumped out, and I was like, well, that's my job. It's romance industry, but it's not happy people, it's single people. These are my people. I'm going there. So I went there, and I worked for them for a number of years, and it was great. And it was a high-end dating agency, and I had never heard of it. And the owners lived in France, and they had a manager there, and she kind of flitted in and out maybe on a once weekly basis. And so I was doing all the sales, and then we had someone else looking after the clients. And I really enjoyed it. And I was meeting this new realm of people that I hadn't really interacted with, and they were all high-flying business people, and it was just fascinating. And I just spent my whole life talking to these inspirational people. And the biggest problem was that they were single. And I used to think, God, they just have everything. How can you not have this really that most people are able to get? And I just found it really interesting. And I never really thought about running my own business. That's a weird thing to say to people, but I never had a desire to run my own business. But within that agency, I was frustrated, as most people are in certain jobs when they work with people, that this could be done better. And there wasn't really much management, and it just felt frustrating. And I was really limited by their guidelines of how we would do things. And it just felt there was so much more potential. So that was the stage I was at in that business within about 18 months. And I have a sister who's 18 months younger than me. And she has always wanted to run a business, always had that as a plan. But she never really knew what she wanted to do and what line she wanted to go in. And she'd always worked in sort of marketing and done temp jobs and things like that. And so she came upon this idea of starting a business and using my knowledge and expertise in this industry, which not many people seem to know about, and there didn't seem to be too many people in it. And was there space for another person to come in? So I was sort of divorced and didn't really have a huge amount to lose then. I was kind of like, well, I haven't really got much to lose. Why not? Let's just do it. And we went with the theory, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this all in. So we both quit our jobs. I just quit. I just started. And naturally, I got sued royally because I was starting a competitor agency. But I found that, in a weird way, slightly flattering, because they obviously saw that I was a bit of a threat. And I had been doing so much in the agency, and I had such insider knowledge. But what I did was just targeted a slightly different market. So back then, about 12 years ago, a lot of people into the agencies were a bit older, perhaps divorcees, or again, people looking to match within the right social circles. And there didn't seem to be anyone doing it for someone of my age, 30s, 40s, who was busy working, didn't want to go online, and wanted to meet someone without putting all the legwork of online dating. So we decided that seemed to be a slight missing niche market within an industry that was already there. So we weren't reinventing the wheel. We were going to do the same as other people were doing, but slightly refocus our target market. And it just worked really well. We did a bit of market research, went around some of the other agencies, found out how they did things and copied it, and that was it. So just not doing anything drastically different.
Can I just drill into that for a
Yes.
second? Because day one, you open your doors, come and join our dating agency. We have no members.
Yep.
And member number one signs up.
Yep.
Who do you have?
Yeah.
You just wait and see.
So basically,
How does that
it
work?
was all about spinning who we were. So just making out we were bigger than we were. So the first thing we did was signed ourselves up for VAT, because I think at the time it was around 72,000 before you were charging VAT. Now, if you did your figures and we were charging $5,000, that means that we only have sort of 15 odd members. I can't even do maths. What is that? 14, 15 members. And the other thing I did is signed up an accountant straight away because I can't do maths. So did that straight away and charged VAT, and instantly people think you're bigger. And obviously we're paying VAT, but we just stuck it on top of the price. So just creating that image we're bigger. We got an office in London, but we didn't get an office in London. We just bought the postcode and the address, and we stuck a picture of this beautiful, amazing London office up on our website, and we paid to use their meeting rooms when we had clients. So instantly we just had this image that we'd been around for ages, we were better. We did something about all my experience in the romance industry. Well, I've been a wedding planner, so we'll just have 5 years on for that. And I've been working in dating for 2 years, so I had 7 or 8 years experience in this industry already. Now, if you were to look into the specifics of that, no, it was all just a bit of a front. But as you say, you can't have a member coming along going, how many, can I meet lots of people? You've obviously been going for a while, or we had to give that image straight away. So that was just front and winging it and fibbing slightly. But what we were doing
It's only a lie if you get caught.
Yeah, exactly. That was the theory about it. And so we just thought, we'll do this for a few months, generate some interest. And that's really just how it started. We had to start with 1, then we had 2, then we had 4, then we had 6, and the people were just coming in. And I was doing a lot of networking just to spread the word about it. And really just talk, because we didn't have the money for advertising or anything like that. So we just flew by the seat of our pants, really.
When you say networking, can you give some specifics around that?
So I was going to London and going to Athena at the time.
Oh,
so
the ladies'
yes,
social
and
thing,
what works really well is that all those ladies that were there, the industries they were in didn't really match what I was doing, but all those ladies knew a single friend who they really wanted to help. Oh God, my friend, she's just gone through this divorce, I'm going to send her your way. And that was it. So it was word of mouth referrals straight away because people found it interesting. And everyone that has a single friend, you just want to help them, especially if you're happily married, because they're kind of a third wheel. So that it worked really well, just targeting people who wanted to help others. Or I would get parents asking about their children, or I would get children asking about their parents who had just been divorced or been widowed or something like that. So that was how we got the people in. And then the other way of getting people in is mainly it is ladies that come to matchmaking agencies. They just believe more in paying for that personal level of service. And so we did find that we had a complete gender imbalance straight away. So we had to rectify that and started to give complimentary memberships to men, just because otherwise we had no men to match people with. And that's just the nature of the industry. And to be honest, it hasn't changed that much in 10 years. So we give the membership to them on a complimentary basis on the process that we don't work proactively for them. We take all their details, we meet them personally, we sign a confidentiality agreement, all of that stuff. And if we feel that they suit the needs of our member, we'll call on them as and when. Sometimes we may never call on them. Sometimes if they're really good, we use them all the time. They're like little donkeys, out you go.
Make sure, everyone's on the same financial par, right? So did you have to ask
So yes. So we vet them and make sure they are on a similar calibre to our members. And they are. It's so strange. Some of my wealthiest members are my complimentary members. And just it's a mentality of some of these people that they don't pay for this sort of thing. You can, and I'm tarring gentlemen with the same brush here, but they'll pay so much for legal advice, financial advice, which I see as fairly intangible at times as well. But things that are around feelings or emotions or, perhaps sort of health or coaching. I don't know if you find that you have a lot more ladies than men, but things that are slightly more intangible are harder to sell to the men, I find. But we need the men. We have to do it. So we have to find a way around of making sure we have that balance. So I have a really large portfolio of lovely gentlemen who I have gathered over the years. And lots of them are married and in relationships. And the thing is, they're really motivated because they know this is free and they want to please us and they want to keep their free membership. And so they're great on dates. And they are genuinely really happy about the fact that they're getting a membership which is quite a high price and they're getting it free, and so they don't take advantage of that. They do make sure they call ladies on time and they're very appropriate on dates, and then if it works they end up getting long-term relationships.
So this gives the women quite a lot of confidence as well because they're back out dating as well.
Yes, yeah.
Is the fact that they're married not somewhat of an obstacle to the...
How do you mean?
You're saying you've got lots of married men?
Oh no, getting married. Sorry, the compliment. So it's not a case of these. Sorry, it's not a case of these gentlemen all being married people. So sorry. So it's not. They're not just there to be used and just go out on dates. They do end up in relationships, and I have complimentary members that are married with members of my agency. Sorry.
You haven't taken them away from there. Wow.
Sorry. There could well be an agency that does that, I don't know. There's all sorts of niches these days. Oh, Madison something or other, yeah, there is. So that's how we structure things. Yes, so going back to the start of it, so the first few years, it actually worked really well. In the first year of business, we turned over £90,000, which was just kind of unprecedented, really. And the next year was 120,000, and the year after that was 140,000. But in the first year of business, my sister got pregnant. And so it started off very much as a balance of me doing a lot of the work and going out there and doing the networking and doing the sales meetings and meeting with everyone, and her doing the the background side of things, which is great. She was really good at that. Very methodical, loves an Excel spreadsheet, very organised, business plans, whereas I'm genuinely not. And I thought that was two very good skill sets that worked together. And we worked together like that for a while, but we were quite different in our way of thinking. And I thought that was a good thing. She thought that was a bad thing. And she thought we should be very much aligned. I feel that if you come up with an idea, it's good to bounce it off someone and get a different perspective. She thought that was wrong and that we should all be doing what she said. It's basically what it came down to. So this went on for a number of years, and it got to a point where 3 to 4 years into the business, I got pregnant. And then suddenly everything shifted and it all changed. And it got very antagonistic between us. And my sister wasn't a very pleasant person to work with. And just the gulf between us grew and grew and grew. And whilst she, after her child had sort of taken sort of 6 months, not off, but had been at home, wasn't seeing people, wasn't doing meetings, was spending the whole time with their child, it was very much in the plan that when I got pregnant, okay, well, when are you back to work? You will be working 3 days a week after, you'll be back after a week, you'll be doing this, when is your child going into childcare? And it was all set and arranged. And what I was going to do was very different to what she had done. And that was just how it was. And that was just a little bit of a annoyance. And I just thought, let's just see how it goes. And we'll see, I'm not making it, I've never done this before. I don't know. We work through it with you. We'll work through it with me. It will be fine. And I made leads ways for you. And, in the understanding and anticipation that you will do the same for me, because we're family and we're sisters. But it didn't work like that. So basically, I had my son. And I remember thinking, gosh, it's so strange. My sister hasn't called me. How odd. And then within a couple of days, she still hadn't called. And then it was just a few days after, and I got a phone call going, we need to chat. And I was like, yeah, because I've had a baby. So, want to know anything about it? And she said, basically, I've just discussed things with my husband, and you're not in the business anymore, you're out. And I was like, oh. Okay, well, where's that come about? And it started to twig some things. In the run-up, as I was getting towards giving birth, her husband was getting very involved in the business, and she was trying to always find things for him to do. Now, he didn't work. He was an army major for years. And about 2 years prior, he'd given up work and decided that he didn't want to do any work anymore because, and no offence to anyone, there's an army or anything like that, he'd served his country, and that was it. And he was 40, and that was it. He was retiring. And that was their thing. That was fine. And I think that was quite a big motivation for the business to be started and the seed planted of me going into business with Natalie. That's my sister. I keep saying sister, not saying the name. And so gradually she'd been sort of bringing her husband in quite a bit. And I hadn't really thought much of it. But when I got that phone call, it all started to tie into place. And I was like, oh, God, there's been a plan. And this is it. And it's all just come to fruition. And so then it just got ugly. And I was with a newborn baby who was less than a week old. And we were fighting badly. And I was saying, I'm not leaving this business. I've just said, what am I going to do? I've got a baby and we're just going to work it through like we did with you. It is fine. And she was saying, no, that's it, you're out. And if you don't give up your 50% and give it to my husband, I will down tools now. And we have 40 clients that need serving on a daily basis. We have meetings all lined up in London for the next few weeks. And if you don't do this, then I will not do a bit of work. And that's it. You're going to have to answer to everything from your hospital bed, basically, with a newborn. So she gave me a real ultimatum, and that was part of the business plan, basically, that she'd come up with her husband just to get me when I was most vulnerable. And to be honest, it probably was, it was quite a good plan, because there are times where I can be a bit of a pushover about things and just go, oh, right. And I have been doing that very much with her.
Oh,
well,
God, no, I would like to be behind that kind of motivation.
So that was a bit of a change. So we went backwards and forwards, and it was just a case of me, this has happened. I'm just standard. What am I going to do? And she was just constantly wearing me down. Then she stopped all communication and wouldn't talk to me, because I was picking up the phone going, can we just talk this through? This is so out of the blue. Where has this come from? This isn't you. And trying to talk to my parents, and they were astounded at her behaviour and all this. And then she decided not to talk. No communication. We're not talking on the phone anymore. So then I just got emails, spites, horrible things, constantly drip feeding. And I was just emotions everywhere. And so this went on probably for a couple of weeks, and I was like, oh my God, and I was pretty much defeated and just thought, oh, I can't do this. I can't. She was just sending things like, these emails need answering. This person saying this person needs meeting. I was like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to cope? And I got on the phone once more a couple of weeks in, after this, and she said, I said, let's just come to an agreement. She said, this is it, I'm stopping now. Unless you hand over your share now, I've got things drawn up, hand it over now, otherwise, that's it. I'm stopping and you're doing all the work. And I was pretty much going to say, fine, I give in, fine. And she just said, come on, just do it, because you won't cope. You won't cope. Well, the prickles came out. The prickles came out, and I just went, just watch me, and put the phone down. And that was it. She didn't work. She stopped everything. So I just got straight back on the emails. And within 3 weeks, I was back in London meeting clients because they were in the diary and I needed the sales and there was nothing coming in because she wasn't doing anything. And we had overheads by this time. It was 4 years in. And that was probably the hardest thing. Well, the hardest thing was squeezing back into my work trousers with the Spanx, putting them on, sat on the train. And I left Samuel and I was on the train like this. My baby, I'm the worst mother in the world. And then the coffee cart came down and I was like, hot coffee. I had a hot coffee and I had the Metro and I was like, oh my God, this is not so bad. I can do this. I can do this. Went and met this lady and I got the sale. And I just thought, right, that's it. I can do this. I'm back. I'm on this path and I'm going to cope and I'm going to do it. And she's out. So until we actually signed the papers and it was all done, she was 50-50 with everything that came in profit. It was split both ways with 50-50 shareholders. So I was meeting all these clients and I was just on fire. I was getting the sales, but I couldn't take the money because if I took the money from them, 50% of that profit was hers. So for some reason, I don't know why the clients believe this, I was saying, we're just going through a bit of a transition with our bank and a bit of so if I can sign you up, we're going to do the paperwork, I'm going to start this membership for you, and we're not going to do payment for just about 2-3 weeks, if that's all right. And for some reason, they all kind of went, oh, yeah, that's fine. Not like, that sounds dodgy. So I just held it off, and did all the negotiating, the arguing with Natalie, and it was agreed that I was buying her out for £65,000, which left me £4,000 in the bank. And my overheads at the time were probably about 8,000 to 10,000 each month. So I had a newborn baby. At this time, he was about 4 to 5 weeks old. I had £4,000. I had overheads coming out in a couple of weeks' time, and I was giving £65,000 to my sister. And it got to the day, and we met in the bank, and we hadn't spoken in ages. And we were just being horrible emails, backs and forwards. And negotiations of had this buyout clause, and I sat there signing the papers. Sign the papers like this, transferring the money over. And I got back home and my mum had come round and she took the baby for 2 hours and I called up everyone and just said, everything's set, everything's ready, and here is the sort code and account number, please do transfer the money. And I had £65,000 back in my bank account in 16 days. And I had the whole lot back. And it was just what I needed. And that was it. And since then, she was gone and I was running the business myself. And suddenly, I did sort of realise all the stuff that she did and I didn't. So I had to do a real crash course in running a business. But I decided at that time, whilst we were in a phase of growth, I was like, we're not growing. I'm in a phase of saving this business. Because after I fought for this so hard and compromised my lovely first weeks with my newborn child, I'm not saving now. I just have to save this and make it last. And that was just my only focus. So it wasn't growth, it was just saving. And so I just kept getting the clients in. Just kept bringing them in. And I had no boundaries. At that point, I was just working all hours. As soon as the baby napped, I was on the phone. There were times when he was in another room crying because I was on the phone to people and I just had to deal with them. I was working till, midnight, 1 in the morning, getting up at 6 and just ploughing through, just not losing focus on saving this company. At the same time, my sister set up a rival dating agency with her husband and she did it. We had a clause in there because I knew what she was going to do because she was like, I can do this, I'm better, blah, blah, blah. John, her husband, he's going to be better than you, whatever. And I was just like, don't lose focus, just do what you're doing, let them do what they're doing. And they set up the website and I was looking for it every day and it came up and I was like, shit, it looks really good. And it was a damn good website. It looked great. It was so much better than mine, but I didn't have time to change my website. And they started the business and they were running it and doing their own thing. And it was pretty much just a plagiarism of what mine was in terms of the wording. They just had better pictures and the website looked good. And John was a salesperson and Natalie was a business person. Anyway, it failed after 3 months. Now, you shouldn't celebrate when your sister fails, but man, I did a massive happy dance. And I just couldn't have been more pleased. Yeah. And it was all those things that she said of, you know, you can't do it, you can't go, I'm the brains behind the business, I'm the one that keeps this going, everything, this is all me. And she truly believed that. And then when it got proven it wasn't that, I was just quite chuffed.
Do you know
about
why
the
the
whole thing.
business failed?
Yeah, because
Obviously not
yes.
enough sales, but
yeah, no, because I know
is there a root cause for that?
I know my sister, and she's very scared. She doesn't take risks. She's very fearful of risk. She's fearful of not having much money to cover things. She's fearful of not knowing what the future plan is. She's fearful and not very that confident with other people. But she's very confident at, like, being mean to her sister. And that was really her sort of comfort zone. She was always the strong one in the family because it was just easier just not to hassle with her. But yes, actually, he was a very confident person, very confident, and he was quite a people person. But in terms of skills that he had, I mean, he's good at press-ups, he's good at shouting at little boys to march, and that was pretty much it. I'm being a cow about it. I know I am, but I'm sure there were other skills, I never saw them. But it was her fear of failure, in all honesty. And so she has now gone back to work, where she was previously in FMCG work. She's gone back to that, and still John.
FMCG, for those who don't know, is
Fast moving. So yeah, so that was all what she did before. And her husband still has never worked, so that's been 10 years. So he just stays at home. I only know this because I stalk his Instagram and Facebook. Occasionally send my little articles in the post anonymously. No, I don't do that. You can tell I've thought about it. They actually moved up to Yorkshire and I had a really good business year and had this article, and I was actually going to take out a page in the Yorkshire Post because it was dirt cheap. And I was just going to do an advert because I knew they took it. And I was like, stop being bitter, Hayley, focus. Get away from the bitter.
You know, you can't deny she's given you such a strong motivation to succeed.
Yes.
It's
So
actually kind of been quite good for your business.
yeah, it really has, and that's true. So all of the things that I couldn't do, I learned how to do. And normally they would have probably been obstacles and I'd have been like, God, I can't do it. This is so hard. But I had this mentality of there is no option of failing. There is no option because I would not give her that satisfaction. And I did sort of focus it on that, but equally I did it for me because I had my newborn child and you know, this was my plan. I'm not saying that I had a massive future plan, this is what I was going to do. Still slightly fly by the seat of my pants about the whole thing. But it just gave me I've never ever considered that I would fail and that this wouldn't work. I will always find a way. And if I found a way in what was a really vulnerable, difficult time, then I don't think it can get much worse than that. So I will always find a way around it and just overcome what obstacles that I just never envisioned. If someone had told me what was going to happen before, or even now, if someone was to say do this again, God, I don't think I could. It was just so draining. But at the time, there was no option. And
how many years in are
so,
at that point?
So we were 4 years in. So now we are 6 years. I call it AS, after sister. 6 years AS. Or arse, because that's what she was. And yes, so it's been a real learning curve since then because I have had to make a lot of decisions, and that was probably the biggest thing. While she found it very bad that I would have a different perspective and we would actually argue over different points and developments and progression, I find it really difficult not being able to do that. So being in my own head and making all the decisions, I probably start to doubt myself more. And I would take so long to make a decision about anything, or I would stop doing any things because I was just like, oh, I don't know, am I doing it right? Oh God, the only person to check with is me. Am I going to get it wrong? And I just have this fear still today. And that's something that I've really struggled with going from being in a partnership to being on my own. And so for that reason, I found Vanessa and started to work with Mastermind. And that has been so cathartic doing that. And just, you know, in all honesty, the answers are there in my head. And I often do the things that I think I'm going to do. But it just helps me to get it out there and say certain things and just say to people, God, is this right? Am I doing it right? There's always this fear of not having someone to bounce off and being liable for all of the decisions and having all the responsibility.
There's a great book called Rocket Fuel, and it talks about this very problem.
Yeah.
And says that the best businesses, and this guy's researched lots and lots of businesses, very successful businesses, and you could talk about confirmation bias, but he sees it as the visionary, the person who knows the direction that the company needs to go in and what they need to do, and then the implementer, the person who then
Yes.
takes that and turns it into a plan
Yep.
that they collaborate on.
Yeah.
And both are autonomous and independent but come together.
Yes.
And sometimes he says the business is set up by a visionary, but they very soon realise they need an implementer.
Yep.
Or vice versa. The implementer has a good idea and knows how to do it, but he needs the visionary to point the company and give it that drive. So
I'm very much the implementer,
Yes.
without a doubt.
Okay.
Very much that. And so, you know, I have to give some kudos to my sister. I probably wouldn't have got the business up off the ground by myself. That's all I'll give her. But yeah, so since then, you know, it has been a real learning experience. And I'm not saying I've done everything right by any stretch of the imagination. I've made some really big mistakes and invested some money that has just gone down the pan, basically, and just learnt from every single one of those. And that has all been beneficial in building my confidence and trusting my decisions. And so I've had to... one of the big things is when I met Vanessa, the first thing she said, I was waiting for this massive business advice, and she just went, go on holiday. I was like, oh, hadn't had a holiday for years, hadn't had any break, working all hours. And do you know what? Just something as simple as that was such good advice, because I did just take a week off, and funnily enough, the whole world didn't fall apart as I thought it would. I built up this idea that I was so important and I couldn't leave anything for a second. Everything would fail if it wasn't for me. And that's not the case at all. That was
the
just...
big yellow ball in the sky rises up over the horizon
Yep.
no matter what you do.
Yeah,
So-
and so it was really nice to understand that actually things don't fall apart if I just stop for a second. So that's been probably one of the biggest experiences I've learned in the last few years. Taking time out has been really important because I come back firing on all cylinders. I still take myself to complete burnout stage before I take some action, and I'm trying to get better, and that is one of my resolutions this year. Other things I've done is just taking on the wrong suppliers, not investigating them fully because I haven't got time to do that. I just need a quick solution now. Taking things to a point where it's almost a crisis situation, and then just finding the first person to help me fix it and making the wrong choices about that. So just trying to slow the pace down, make informed decisions is something I've probably learnt over the last 6 years. I have a next slide where it's one of my advertising things that I made a mistake on.
That's
So,
your website.
oh, this is my website, yep. So very discreet, doesn't sort of splash or scream, you know, tacky dating, hopefully promotes a certain image. So this is so an example of me not taking on the right suppliers and things like that. So I didn't do advertising because I'd paid for some advertising and it hadn't worked very well and I'd lost money. So in my head, my brilliant business head, I went, well, the advertising doesn't work. It really doesn't
I
work.
hear that all the time.
Yeah, it doesn't work. I've done it before, it doesn't work. So I'm not going to do it. And then I found that I was so dependent on people coming in, but being reactive instead of proactive about going out to find them, that I'd reached a bit of a stretch where it had gone quiet. I think it was summer. And I was like, I actually do need to do something proactive about this rather than rely on other people to come to me. And I had someone call me up and say, we've got a deadline on this advert. I've got a full page available. I need your artwork in 2 hours and I'll give it to you for like 200 quid. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll get artwork over to you. Put the phone down. I don't have artwork. What am I going to do? I've got myself in a situation again. It's crisis point. Learnt Canva in an hour. So sat up and at midnight came up with these 2 adverts and put them in a magazine. And actually got a fair bit of response from them. But what I did get was a call from another advertiser, which is my next slide, who called me up and said, I've seen you in this magazine. I think it was Surrey Magazine. Seen you in this magazine and, liked your artwork. Awesome. Learnt Canva in an hour and made it up myself. So I was really touched by that. And she said, we'd like to do an article on you. Could you provide some content? And I was like, do you know what? I'm going to embrace this and be open-minded. And it was £400. So I did this. And that cost me 450 quid, and I got a conversion of £46,000 from that.
How many people did it go out to? Do you know that?
So that is Premier Magazine. No idea, because I don't do my research and I do things like that. So that is a good lesson as well. Someone had just called me up, offered this, and I was like, I've done it once. Consistency is key. I'm going to do it again. And I just knew the market it went to, in all honesty. It goes through the most affluent postcodes in Surrey and some of Berkshire.
Hang on a minute, let's stop there, because there's a business lesson right there.
Yep.
The first thing is, if somebody's phoning you to advertise,
Yep.
they're under the cosh because they've got space to fill. Now that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad idea. So
Yep.
the first question that you ask them after that is, who do you reach? What's your ABC?
Yes.
Well, tell me your profile, your demographic. If that demographic matches the kind of people that you need to be in front of, then it might be for you.
Yes, so
Also,
that's what I
can say
did.
one thing. Be careful with magazines. I work for a magazine. A lot of these they must work for some people. But a lot of the kind of fancy glossy magazines don't have a contract they can show you, which we have with the Royal Mail, saying we go to these homes.
Yes,
Instead
that's
of
true.
saying we go to all
Yep.
the best homes, we go to the 30,000 homes. Well, which homes, which
Yep.
postcodes? Often that's all a bit of a facade actually. So be careful.
Yeah.
You do have to be
I think a lot
careful.
of people
Yes.
go them because they don't care about the distribution figures, or really, it's more about we're Rolex. You know, we're in this
Yep.
fancy magazine. Does anybody look behind the surface and see how many homes it actually goes to? Have they shown them proof? Probably not. So.
But the first investment that you made was how much for that first
Oh,
one?
it was under £200.
But that's the kind of money that, if it doesn't work,
Then yes, exactly. And so I decided advertising didn't work because I'd invested quite a bit of money and it hadn't worked. So I've been very closed-minded about things. And so it took these small offers where they were quite very late notice. I could just do it without too much worry of it working or not. And as I said, I did that one just on the whim without doing research. And it brought in such a huge conversion that it actually made me think, maybe if I do research about this and do it properly, this is an avenue for me. And so those are the sort of ways that I've learnt lessons, and I'm not advocating that.
but also there's a lesson there from the company that phoned you up and offered you this.
Yes.
They saw that you'd spent money.
Yep, and they'd researched what I did, and they called me up and said, this is the target market we reach,
You're
and said all the
spending
things.
money on advertising.
Yeah.
So you are somebody that they can have a conversation
Yep.
with. And then they offered you massive value.
Yep.
We're going to do an article on you. It's only going to be twice as much because they probably knew how much they were charging
Yep.
for the other one. And you go, so I paid 200 for that, double that, and it's an article.
Yeah,
In a leading
went to my
magazine.
ego.
Exactly.
I can send that to my
Massive
sister.
value. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's quite interesting as well. The way
Yeah.
that they targeted you and found you, and then saw that you were a good match for them.
Yeah.
They probably have a filter that's, well, you know, if it's a plumber, we don't want it in our magazine.
Don't know who it works
Yeah.
for.
And it did, it did work. But like you said, the cost was going to be fairly negligible if it didn't. But I've been advertising with them every quarter for 2 years now. And so, yes, it worked. And that, if I'm honest, was a bit of a fluke. But since then, I've advertised with others and I've learnt the questions to ask and that kind of is how I've done it. I've kind of either fallen into something and it hasn't worked, or it's been a fluke and it has, and I've invested more time in it. So I think probably one of the
That's
lessons...
how business is.
One of the lessons
That's
for
it,
me
that's
is
called
like
business. That's the game.
I try and be open-minded rather than instantly closing something down. And it hasn't worked each time, it really hasn't. But every time it's gone wrong, I've tried to look at why and come up with the pragmatic reasons and the reasonable reasons why, rather than going, well, it just doesn't work. I'm never going to do any marketing. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that when a campaign fails, people blame advertising.
Exactly.
And when
yeah.
their campaign succeeds, they take credit for their genius.
Yep. 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 So true. So true. So present day now. So I have my office in Godalming, my office in London, small office in London, and I have lots of clients. I get most of my business, over 65%, by personal referral, and the rest of it is backed up by these targeted magazines and a website that I've been saying that I was going to redo for the last 2 years, and I will get around to doing it at some point. Again, I'm not saying I'm the big I am, but there are big failings that I've had, big obstacles that I've had, and each time it has been a case of trying not to let that stop my focus, and try not to let my competitors distract me, and try not to let my decisions be influenced by I must never advertise in marketing because that didn't work, just trying to keep that open mind. And so far, that's got me to my 10th year in business, and I have a team of 4 people, and I'm in a different role now. I'm more sort of overseeing and managing people, and again, that's a whole other realm of mistakes that I make doing that. Yeah, it's a comfortable place at the moment, and it's not, as I said, not sort of a journey where I would say follow everything that I do, because that isn't the case at all. But sometimes the thing that just cross your paths can just be the best thing for you in business and the way it's meant to be, and that's how I look at it.
That's fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
One thing.